Hello, hello. This is Yuri with Moving Sales Professionals and Let's Talk Moving Podcast. And with me today, I have David Smart with Riverbank Removals in UK. How you doing today, David?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And thanks for having me on the pod today. I'm looking forward to obviously speaking with you.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to host Removals man from across the pond. So that's
Well,
great
that's
to
it.
have you on.
That's
So,
it.
David, how did you get
Mhm.
into removals industry?
So I left school, and then from the age of 16, yeah, just started getting into removals. Worked as a porter. Done that for 4 or 5 years, give or take. Really enjoyed like traveling around the country. Just loved the job. Really, I'm very passionate about the job anyway. And then I moved to Australia when I was 21. Done a gap year out there, and really got into removals properly out there. Started doing big office moves, stuff like that. And then yeah, Riverbank Removals when I come back, then obviously became established, and then I started to own my own company, and then the rest is sort of history kind of thing, and still in the game. So I'd say maybe 17 years in the game
Yeah,
now. So yeah,
yeah, almost as long as I've been doing it.
yeah,
That's great. That's great. So, is there something that you feel that you're doing that's unique versus your competitors?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we offer, I feel like the company we are always drive for us to be very personable with our customers. I always want them to be able to feel comfortable. They trust us. We're very active on social media and we pump that out to all our customers via emails with new promo videos, just so the customers, when they sit down at night and they go through our quote, they can literally see exactly who's going to turn up at their door. With that, we don't hide anything. We feel like our customers know us before we actually move them, in terms of the teams that arrive, stuff like that. So yeah, like I say, yeah, I feel like our social media presence is getting bigger and bigger. And yeah, it's just really just putting the company on the line. I feel like ever since we've done that, we've seen a massive growth within the company, just by social media videos and all the stuff like that, really. Yeah.
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more.
Right. And on this podcast, that's something that we talk about a lot.
Mm.
I feel that social media in general, that's the way of the industry going forward, whether it's moving or removals or anything else in that general. Because ultimately, at this point, if you as moving men or removal men, if you guys are spending any money on leads or lead traffic or any of that stuff, the
Yeah.
best leads there are people that are organic, people that are calling you today, right?
Yeah.
So going forward, the best way to build organic traffic is social media because you're building your following. It's not necessarily something
Yeah.
that you're focusing on that's going to happen, a move that's going to happen tomorrow per se. It's
No.
going forward into the future because ultimately right now, if you can attract a demographic of 15 to 17-year-olds, for example, these
Hmm.
are guys that are in a few years, 3, 4, 5+ years, they're going to be
Hmm.
moving out of their houses. They're going to be going to school or they're going to be getting a job or getting whatever, but they're going to be moving. So these are
Yeah.
guys, if you can attract their attention today, if you can get them to
Sure.
follow you today, when it comes time for them to do a move 3, 4, 5 years from now, they're not even going to think of using anybody else if at that point they've been following you for the last 3 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I say, weirdly enough that you say that because we had a company meeting when we were actually going to go forward with the whole thing, and the whole thing was the plan of action was long term. So
Right.
it's a play in the long game basically. So
Right.
yeah, like I say, building it up. But yeah, the story follows and all that, so the viewers and stuff. It just goes up every time. We actually employ a film guy who comes in and does a filming, so he does 10 videos for us, sort of like documentary style,
Mhm.
just to show what we've been up to, keep the followers and keep Instagram, ticking over at all
Right.
times kind of thing. And that's been a massive help because when we used to film on the iPhone and stuff, it was very hard to actually do the removal, but then do a good reel at the same time.
Right.
So that money invested into him, he certainly pays he pays, we get our money's worth with him basically
Right.
when
And
he,
I feel that that's extremely important because we're driving traffic our way, and that's something that we got to continue going.
yeah.
So Yeah, I think so. I think that all companies you got to find new ways of doing
Of
business.
course. Yeah, of
So
course.
on this podcast, we talk a lot about that, and it's extremely important for us to do those type of things. It's used to be like in US, a lot of people used to do certain things. So I don't know if it's going to
Yeah.
be a little different in UK probably, but we had yellow what we called yellow pages in the United States, which was this
Yes, we had that
massive
as well. Yeah.
yellow book, right, that
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
businesses listed throughout
Mm.
the area that the that book covered, right? And people moving companies used to take out a full page, half page ad that somebody can go and go that ad and go pick a mover
Yeah.
and call them, right? So that's the day of the past. That these days,
Yeah.
you don't even see those things anymore.
Hmm.
But that used to be the way. You got
Yeah. I
to
think.
adjust. That's not no longer the case. So what's
No.
the next frontier? To me, the next frontier is social media, and you need to
Sure.
focus on it. You need to come up with things new.
Yeah.
We talk a lot here. We've mentioned Warren Leggett multiple times with his show, and obviously you're doing something similar. Obviously, if you have a film guy come in and film things, and I promote you guys very much so with U.S. companies because I feel like U.S. companies are not doing that enough because we need
No, I
to
appreciate.
have that drive because it does make a huge difference going forward, especially if you're trying to build for the future.
Does your company need more creative marketing and ad campaigns to improve traffic and organic leads? Well, Moving Sales Professionals has a solution for you. We have partnered with social media marketing agency that has over 300 million views on their ads and videos across social media, and they have generated over $35 million for their clients over the last 10 years alone. Their services include content creation, social media ads, pay-per-click campaigns, website and funnel development, Google Ads, email marketing campaigns, lead generation, and much, much more. For a limited time only, they have discounted rates for their services. Sign up for a free consultation call with us via our Calendly link on our website or below this video.
Companies
Mm.
that have been around for a very long time, they've been doing this for a very long time.
Mm.
Unfortunately, a lot of them are very set in their ways and how they do things.
Sure.
So we need to obviously
Sure.
change those
Change that.
approaches. Right. We need
Mm.
to change those approaches because what happens now a new company can come on the market, can focus on social media today, and frankly, they're going to bypass that old time and true mover who has that knowledge and many, many years of experience. Maybe they're
Of
third,
course.
fourth
Yeah.
generation mover, but they're
No.
not employing modern techniques. They're not using modern strategies in order to get ahead. So this new company that barely has their experience, doesn't have their experience to be frank, right? They're
Yeah.
coming in, and because of their knowledge and willingness to try new things, they bypass the old and tried and true movers by.
No, for sure. And I think, to be fair, I think social media is the best investment that you can make within your company at the moment.
Absolutely.
People are glued to their iPhones. And funny enough, just interestingly, here's a couple of stories. So, phone call from customer. I've watched your Instagram for 6 months. They're now finally ready to move. It's kind of, we plant seeds. Every video is a seed for us,
Right.
and people watch it. So the difference is that they can watch our videos for 6 months and then they decide to move with us. But if we didn't do social media, they wouldn't remember an
No.
ad online. Yeah, we're and with the investment, like I said, the investment into the camera guy, what it brings the company is that consistency. It takes the sting off me. I'm focused on making sure that the business operates on the ground, the standards stay high, the reviews are coming in, we're offering that great service at all times. So I would personally recommend, just through me trying to do it myself before, the investment in the camera guy and the quality of the videos and the quality of the edits. The investment's worth its weight in gold, really, because the amount of times I've had those phone calls of, I've done quotations before where people say, their husband's like, "Oh, Dave, finally nice to meet you. I watch you on Instagram all the time." It's all stuff like this. You're all of a sudden, I feel like we get the job because they feel comfortable already. And I
Yes,
feel like we
absolutely.
can bypass our competitors that are not doing social media by just getting the jobs and winning the jobs anyway.
Right.
Just so people
You're
know.
putting your name out there. It's a commercial that pays for itself because by
Sure.
putting yourself out there, you're getting more moves. By getting more moves, you're earning more money. By earning your money, you're able to keep that, put even more money into growing your business, right? So that stuff is
Sure.
extremely important because ultimately we all want to get to a point. Why do we do what we do? Why do we put as much
Mm.
time into work as we do? Because ultimately we want to be able to go on vacation. We want to be able to take our family somewhere, right? We
Yeah.
want to go to all those exotic places that we always dreamed about but never been to, right? So
Yeah.
we don't just work to work. We want to be able to achieve something. We want to get to a point where the life work balance is
Mm.
there, where we're able to do things for a reason, to be and then be able
Of
to
course.
enjoy the seeds of our work and the seeds of the progress that we're putting in. So social media is
Yeah.
extremely important to that regard. I mean,
And like you said, it's the young
yeah,
game. You know, when in 5 years' time, when then 25-year-olds are then
yeah,
30, they're going to be buying houses. We've got
yeah,
the game locked down. You know, it's kind of like, well, hopefully anyway, hopefully
right,
we are with the
right,
money we put in. But yeah, just off that, and I think like the best bit of advice I'd give to probably a US company that doesn't think this is great or whatever, but you know, I see people that post online and stuff, and they don't reveal the full company. They don't reveal it. You know, I feel like if you're going to do it, you got to lay all your cards on the table and show who exactly you are. And I think that's what drags the audience in. I wouldn't just put like a pitch, video or a video of a house that you moved with just the
right,
bands. The guys have got to be in it. You know, the boss has got to be doing, you know, interviews. You know, just people want to know what's going on within our company. You know, that's just the fact. And obviously, if we're giving people, you know, that insight to everything that we do,
right. And
I
it's
just,
also about building a connection. You're building a
and it builds
connection
a
with your future
community as
clients.
well.
Yes.
You know, I couldn't. We bought a fourth van yesterday, and I couldn't quite believe how many people liked it, and I couldn't believe how many people commented on it, and I couldn't believe how many Instagram DM messages I got. You know, congratulations, you deserve it. You know, been following your journey. You know, keep going, and you know that's through maybe 2 years of posting. But what we've built is sort of like a community on there where people support the business through Instagram, and they're happy to see us doing well. And I just believe that's because we just lay everything on the line. We're a removal company that works hard. We do a good job for people. We look after people. We're straight, you know, we're straight up, and yeah, we just deliver a great service to everyone in our local community. And I'm just hoping that obviously that can carry on building.
Yeah, and people want to be able to identify with the company they choose. So in some cases,
Mm,
if they identify with you and your price is higher than somebody that they don't
mm.
identify with,
Yeah,
they're going to choose you even though you're priced
one
higher.
hundred percent,
So
100%. I mean,
that
they say, yeah, there is those times where they say, Dave, you're the most expensive, but we felt the most comfortable with your company.
right,
Perfect.
right, and that's
You know,
that's extremely
that's not
important.
because we're mega expensive. You know, sometimes removal men quote differently to others, and people
Right,
see the job differently through the other eyes of another removal man. You know, the removal market in terms of quotations, I feel fluctuates crazy. You know, when I go
right.
around to quote, sometimes I'm just like, how have they even come up to that quote? It's so cheap, and then how have they even come to that quote? It's so expensive. Sometimes we might be the most expensive, sometimes we might not be. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those, really, isn't it? I feel like you just got to stay consistent with what you're doing and believe it and believe in the service that you provide.
Right. It's always it's something that it's the same thing I tell my salespeople all the time, which is you gotta ultimately what you want to do is you want to sell value. You don't want to sell the
Sure.
price. You want to say
No.
sell the value of the service. Now, obviously, if you're doing the sales for a brand new company that just started yesterday, you have to sell the price a little bit more
Of
because
course.
there's no value to pitch, not yet, right?
No.
Eventually, you want to get to a point where you're going to pitch the value, but for long-term companies, it's all about the value.
Yeah.
They got you want them to choose you for the value, not for the
Mm.
price.
Like I say, I've always built the foundation on this company is that, you know, I never used to, when I worked in Australia, it always sat with me about the guy that I worked with and the customers being unhappy with the way he operated in terms of the money sales and the pushiness of it and stuff like that. And, you know, I've always built this company on in my mindset is not to be, you know, money chasing. I always believe that if we delivered a great service over a long period of time and invested our money into the right side of advertisement over a long period of time, the work would just come. So I've always gone off that motto is that customer first, service first, money third, because I believe that I feel that that's the foundation to actually build it, especially here. I feel it's the foundation to build for future success is, you know, you need everyone talking good about you first before you think about the money. And I feel like obviously you see startups over here in the UK, and it's all about the money straight away, but you haven't got the client, you haven't got a brand, you haven't got clients, you haven't got loads of people talking about you. So that's the way I've built my foundation, basically, of the company. That's how I believed I should go with things.
Right, and I agree with that 100% because ultimately, I mean, obviously we work with a lot of moving companies and removal companies, and our goal is always to make sure whether we produce the proper product.
Mm,
Ultimately, we want to be able to create the proper service. So the salespeople that I
yeah,
employ, they genuinely care about the customer. So
that's it. Yeah.
at times you got to understand that it's not about the $50, $100, 100 pounds that you're going to
Yeah.
make extra that particular moment by charging that client because you can and you should, for example, right?
You should.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you got to look at the better picture and say, yeah, I have the right and everything else to to charge this, but is it in the best interest of my company down a few months down the road, a year down the road for me to do that, where
Mm,
if I'm coming to that situation, if I'm, let's say it's an older lady and she has, yes, there's extra stuff. Yes, there's extra things that need to be. Yes, you're within your right to charge that extra money, right? But
mm,
ultimately, if you take care of that lady because she's an older lady and because she has a big family,
mm.
if you take care of that moment, that may lead to you having twice as much work because of all the family that she has and the good
Yeah.
word that she's going to be able to pass around, you knowing that you could have charged her the extra, whatever, and you
Yeah.
didn't because you took care of her and you understood that she's an
But
older lady.
yeah, like I say, I mean, in terms of removals, I still, as a business owner, and when I still go out to do removals, I don't go and do them all the time. But when I do, for me, there's no better feeling than that smile on a customer's face when the move's done.
Right.
And because it's such a big, stressful day for
It
them,
is. Yeah.
you know, we are so about that. Yeah, okay. You want to add on that? Yeah, sure, no problem. No problem. No problem. Everything's no problem. As
I mean,
we're in the
of
job
course, it's within reason, but at the
within
same
reach, of
time,
course,
within
but I'm just
reason, but at the
talking,
same time, you got to be
yeah.
able to look at it down the road and see what benefit it really brings you. So we
Yeah,
got to look at that
and
as
I
well.
believe that. For me, I remember there was one job that when I first started out, I under quoted it by like a Luton van, and we didn't even make any money on the job, blah blah blah. But we bent over backwards still for that customer, and they were happy at the end. But I'd really come away with that sinking feeling, like they're going to talk bad about me. I've messed up, and I didn't like that feeling.
Right.
So everything that we do from top to bottom within the office to so service based with them, because when you said, "Oh, is there a bit of advice for any new starters coming out?" I just believe build the foundation, and then
Absolutely.
the money comes after that.
Yeah.
You don't need to think, oh no, I've only got like, two moves this week, but I've just, overcharged the customer or something.
Right.
Just build that foundation, and it takes time, mate. I had one van for 3 years, and then it took me
Yeah.
that long to then buy the second, and then the third, and now the fourth. We're
Right.
9 years in January, and now we're up to four. But it's about timing. The work's there now for us. I feel the phone book and the clientele's there, but it's taken time. I've had to be patient and
Right.
go through some stuff and whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
foundation first. If I didn't build the foundation, I probably wouldn't be sitting there right now.
Right. It's exactly the same thing that I say over and over again. m- the way that we do things and the way that I want my sales people to do things. It's exactly,
Mm.
I mean, I want to be able to sleep at night. I want my sales reps to be able
Yeah,
to sleep at night
yeah,
by knowing that they did their absolute best to get as much
100%.
information as they could, to provide as
Yeah,
accurate of a survey as they could, or
yeah,
a quote, and that they did a good job, but the customer's happy at the end of the day. Like
yeah.
you go
And I
away,
think
you
you're
walk
right.
away with a good feeling, and it goes
That's what
into
it's
a lot
about.
of things. Right.
That's what it's about, because removals, I think a lot of maybe people do forget that it's actually, it's a massive day for someone. There's feelings involved for the customer.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
there's, someone could be leaving a house that they've brought a family up in, and it's an emotional day. You need to be there, and you need to be providing that service where they feel comfortable. And the last thing you need to ever be doing is coming away from a job feeling like you've done the customer bad. You know, it's not something that you need to be doing, and it's just something. that's what I remind myself all the time. It's, it's the biggest day in one of the biggest days in someone's life, to move all their contents from one thing to another in certain situations. And it's just to always remember that that service has to be 100% at all times. 100%. It's a massive day for them. It's not so much for us because we do it every day. They don't do that every day. And we need to make that the best experience possible for the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's once again that's extremely important to be able to do that type of thing. So it's yeah, you want to make sure people keep coming back to you, and you gotta it comes from the way that you present yourself as a company, but it also comes from
Yeah.
within your company culture and people that work for you being happy to work for you and being able to,
Yeah.
you know, it almost to a point where if you like what you're doing, it doesn't feel like a job anymore. So people are
That's it.
happy to get up in the morning and go to work versus
Yeah.
going, oh man, I have to go there again, you know? So you
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
want the first one and not the second one.
No, I mean, removals is a great job. I love it to bits. You're driving around all the country and you meet different people from different walks of life every single day. It's a great job. Learn a lot on the job. It's not just lifting furniture. It's actually quite you learn so much on removals just through, you learn some valuable life lessons and stuff. You meet some crazy people, and people that you'd never dream of meeting. But like I say, yeah, great job. And yeah,
Okay. Well, that I mean, we can talk about this for hours, but we want to make sure we don't want to bore you guys too much. So,
yeah,
David, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to make sure
no way.
put some links here for people to check out your
Appreciate
company. But and as
it.
I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for
no,
joining
no
us,
problem. I really appreciate
and
your
we'll
time.
talk again soon.